So the premiere episode of season 2 was a little slow, but I think they got a lot more coming for us here with episode 2. So in episode 2, we're taken back to the original silo to see the fallout after the residents witness something they've never seen before. Someone going outside and surviving. The episode kicks off with Bernard, who last season fled the cafeteria in a panic, grabbing a mysterious key with a lighted fob and the number 18 and entering a secret room. Now we do learn that he ended up in the IT server vault, and from there he watches the live feed from Juliet's helmet as she enters the abandoned silo. At this time, Bernard opens a book titled The Order, which is also, keep in mind, the name of the episode. But he turns to a chapter ominously named, "In the event of a failed cleaning, prepare for war." Oh shit. So with alarms going off left and right, Bernard bolts from the vault, knowing damn well that the silo is on edge. As Bernard leaves the room, we can see that this door is the exact same as the one in the abandoned silo with Juliet that the stranger Solo is locked behind. Then we also notice those same pair of giant fans in the hallway, just like the ones Juliet passed by in the other silo. And it becomes pretty clear now to us that the stranger is hiding in the server vault room. And I'm pretty sure that these visuals were done on purpose to portray that to the audience, that this area is the same area in the abandoned silo. Meanwhile, Judge Meadows, clearly nursing another hangover, wakes up to the sound of the alarm. Her guard informs her that the sheriff refused to clean, a shocking revelation for the silo's power brokers. An intense announcement soon follows, urging everyone to return home quietly. So as Bernard exits the secret server vault room, we see a central pillar and we know that it's located on level 19. But keep in mind that the lighted fob said 18, so what does 18 actually mean? In full crisis mode, he orders Sims to enforce an emergency curfew and take control of the sheriff's department, making it clear that tensions are high. Sims is also ordered to put a close watch on Juliet's father, take 2 people in the Down Deep into custody, and he also warns Bernard about rumors of another rebellion. Back in the cafeteria, rumors begin to spread that if Juliet could walk away, maybe it's safe outside after all. The crowd is sort of teetering on the edge of rebellion, with Deputy Hank failing to calm the uproar. Knox, who's head of mechanical, steps in to manage the chaos. But residents are angry and are convinced that they've been lied to for years. So Shirley thinks that it's a good idea to shut down the silo until they get the truth. In this moment, a confrontation occurs when Shirley accuses Knox of betraying Juliet, but Knox insists he had to make tough choices to avoid a larger disaster. But eventually, their argument is cut short when Walker, apparently no longer afraid to leave her apartment, which we did see last season, she cools down the crowd with a fire hose and tells them to get back to work. Knox warns Shirley to be cautious, noting how volatile the situation is. Then we see Dr. Nichols, who's Juliet's father, distracted and staring at a barren landscape on the observation screen, who's probably haunted by the thoughts of his daughter's disappearance over the hill and thinking that Juliet is possibly dead for sure. Eventually, a nurse pops up and says she needs him to help with a crying baby in the nursery, and we can see one of Sim's spies watching him as he leaves. In the sheriff's office, Sims visits Billings, trying to calm him down and insisting that the sheriff's department is only temporarily under judicial control. But Mr. By-the-Book Billings doubts Bernard's faithfulness to the pact, and he has now seen their lawlessness firsthand. Sims' statement about Juliet's apprehension and declaration to leave the silo is all fabricated lies, as we all know. And luckily, Billings isn't buying it either because it doesn't make any sense. So it seems like he's finally beginning to think for himself a little bit. At Walker's apartment, Shirley insists Juliet has to be rescued if she's still alive. But Walker explains that she could not have survived because there's so little air in the suit. But starting to put the pieces together about the sabotage suit, Shirley confronts Walker about the note she sent Juliet, and she asked if it was about the tape. And of course, we already know that it was the good tape that Walker got from Supply that saved her life. But Walker deflects the conversation by making Shirley feel guilty about being insensitive to her grief. So around this time, Deputy Hank arrives to arrest Walker because she is one of the 2 people in the Down Deep Bernard told Sims to apprehend. He tries to calm her by apologizing and letting her know judicial security just has some questions for her. And of course this goes without saying, but at this point we already know that Sims and Bernard are tightening their grip on anyone who might dispute the silo's fragile order. Judge Meadows, initially in denial, won't believe either that Juliet refused to clean the sensors outside, because they all do, or that she survived too. The repercussions of the failed cleaning begin to dawn on her and she dumps her drink down the drain because she's going to need a clear head and put the damn drinks down so she can figure out how to deal with the chaos that's coming. Knox visits his friend Mark in the fabrication unit about the growing uproar brought on by his previous shadow, Juliet's failed cleaning. He has 2 requests for Mark. One, don't make weapons if asked, and the second one we're just left guessing about, because this department does make things out of metal and Knox might actually want something crafted. I think at one point in the trailer, we did see some sort of weird projectile or something like that, so it might possibly be Knox who's behind that. Then we cut to Bernard seeking help from Meadows, who's not really feeling his proposal. He tells her he's speaking to the silo and how he would like for her to be there as a show of unity. But in a tense exchange, she is reluctant, but he's like, well, with 10,000 lives at risk, I didn't think I'd have to order you to comply. Then she asks Bernard if he knows how Juliet managed to get over the hill, and Bernard is like he figured it must have been the tape. Meadows shrugs, saying, well, someone was bound to figure that out eventually. Frustrated, Bernard mutters that he should have sent Juliet to the mines instead. Meadows then questions if he's scared of an angry mob, but Bernard shakes his head and reveals that what really scares him is what Juliet saw on the other side of the hill. Thousands of bodies, all lying outside, an entire silo dead, and he warns her that that could happen to their silo. Meadows reminds him that the order is what dictates his actions. At this time, Bernard snaps back, saying the order only covers failed cleanings, not something the founders couldn't have ever imagined, like someone surviving and walking out of sight. He points out that he's here asking her for help because she used to be his shadow. Meadows calmly reminds him that she isn't anymore. But Bernard, clearly frustrated, insists that this is an emergency. Meadows just stares, and Bernard, pretty pissed off about this, says he'll never understand her. And it really doesn't seem at this moment that Judge Meadows is fully in support of Bernard. He accuses her of hiding a secret for 25 years and demanding to know what she's keeping from him. And when he asked her to help him, if not for the silo, then at least be for old time's sake. He even starts adding perks to the deal, practically begging. But Meadows cuts him off, saying he still doesn't know her. Finally, she pulls out a book from her stash of illegal relics, and we see a classic. The Wizard of Oz. She starts talking about the all-powerful wizard, a fraud who gets in a balloon and just flies away. She tells Bernard that that's who she is and what she wants. And she's like, if you can't deliver that, then you could just fuck off. Judge Meadows just seriously put her foot down. Their conversation reveals a clear mistrust and a shared shaky history, making it clear that they're navigating a shaky alliance. Plus, who in their right mind would trust Bernard? I feel like after season 1, and especially the stuff that started happening with Juliet, it's pretty clear that Bernard is someone who really can't be trusted. In the books, the character of Judge Meadows does not exist. Bernard's shadow is Lucas, who we met last season. In the series, he was the stargazer who had eyes for Juliet. When he didn't rat her out, Bernard banished him to the mines. Lucas had a much larger role in the trilogy. Not only was he Bernard's right-hand man and confidant, he and Juliet shared a deeper relationship as well. That does seem a little unlikely in this retelling, with him working his ass off in the mines for years. But who knows, we might actually see Lucas again in the series. I know many book readers at this time are disappointed though, because he is a fan favorite. Next, we cut to a scene of Deputy Hank marching Walker, who's handcuffed, past a hallway full of Silo citizens as they stare in disbelief. In the sheriff's department, he locks her in a cell where her ex-wife Carla is already chilling. Carla works in supply and is the one who arranged to replace the faulty tape that was used to wrap Juliet's suit. After Deputy Hank leaves with the other deputies to round up all the residents to hear the mayor's speech, and the two old lady prisoners are all alone and free to talk, or at least that's what they thought. Back in the down deep, Teddy meets Shirley in an outer corridor of the generator room to tell her Walker is locked up with Carla McLean in a holding cell. Shirley is now more convinced than ever that this is all about the tape. They know the IT tape Juliet stole was defective, and Walker must have been involved in switching it, so they know now that Walker has the proof and they have to get to her. Back in the holding cell, Carla tells Walker she's planning to take all the blame for the tape switch and leave her out of it completely. Walker isn't having it though. She says that they should just keep quiet and deny everything. But Carla pushes back, warning her that if they don't act, someone will eventually point fingers and it'll be off to the mines, or worse, out to clean. Carla insists that if she doesn't take the fall, they'll both end up dead. But Walker doesn't mind this though, because she's like, well, at least we'd go together. Thinking they're safe to talk in privacy of the sheriff's holding cell, they let their guard down. But unknown to them, there's a camera tucked away in the vent watching their every move. The episode ends with Bernard delivering a speech to the Silo residents where he spins a hopeful yet misleading tale, basically meaning he just tells a big lie. As Bernard steps up to the podium to address the Silo, he spots Meadows already waiting in the wings. So basically she came around. Keeping his composure, he begins his speech. He acknowledges that the events of the day might have left everyone uneasy, but insists it was actually a good day. He explains that until now, everyone who stepped outside had died on the hillside because of the toxins. He declares that Juliet died a hero for the Silo. Some in the crowd call her a traitor, but Bernard defends her, calling her a fighter. A heckler then shouts Juliet's alive, but Bernard counters, saying he wishes that were true, and then once again goes on to declare that she died a hero. He goes on to lie about how before she went out, he asked Juliet to test a new kind of tape to seal her suit. Her journey over the hill proved that it offered better protection, a small but vital step forward, the first in their lifetime. He provides hope to the crowd, telling them that they'll keep improving the suits until someday they can safely leave the silo for good, just telling them a big old juicy lie. Judge Meadows unexpectedly backs him up, offering a temporary sense of unity. She praises Bernard for his leadership and breakthrough. Then, to celebrate the achievement, she announces the reward of 5 credits for every household. But the mood shifts when Shirley shouts from the crowd that they're lying. She reveals that Juliet discovered that they were using faulty tape on purpose and swapped it out for Mechanical's tape instead. The crowd stirs as a raider steps forward, demanding her name. With defiance, Shirley replies Juliet Nichols, and then the crowd goes crazy in solidarity. Before the raider can arrest her, Knox charges in, calmly negotiating the situation. He even brings in Deputy Hank to vouch for Shirley. Luckily for her, she gets out of trouble, but Shirley defiantly storms off, and Knox directs Cooper to follow her. Sims pays the hecklers for their service, who were pulled out of detention and planted in the crowd. Bernard and Sims have taken extra steps to manipulate the residents and ensure everything goes as planned. Bernard stands in Sims's office, fiddling with the Pez dispenser Juliet got from George, waiting for Sims to show up. Once Sims walks in, he quickly reports that the hecklers have been dealt with. Then he glances at the relic and asks if it was important. Bernard shakes his head and tells him, well, it wasn't before, but it is now. Then Sims updates him, saying that everyone's back home and watchers are keeping tabs on the troublemakers. Then almost casually, Sims suggests he could be more useful if Bernard made him his shadow. But Bernard still ain't feeling the idea and tells Sims that the crisis isn't over and that he needs him exactly where he is. Deputy Hank approaches Walker and Carla, apologizing for keeping them locked up and saying they're free to go. Walker, who's still puzzled, says that she thought Judicial had more questions for them, but Hank shrugs it off and just says they did, but not anymore. He adds that the mayor explained Juliet's walk over the hill as a result of some new tape from IT. Then we cut back to Bernard as he descends the silo stairs and he sees the letters JL written on a pillar, which we could more than likely guess stands for Juliet Lives. Meanwhile, Sims gets home and his wife Camille immediately asked him if he talked to Bernard about becoming his shadow. He tells her that Bernard said that he's too valuable where he is, and of course they're both confused because this is something Sims is eager for. They also can't figure out why Meadows showed up because it's been ages since she's made a public appearance. But after reflecting on her background, they realized she was in IT before she moved to Judicial and noted that she worked under Bernard back then, and they wonder if she's helping him behind the scenes now. Later, Bernard visits Meadows at her apartment to thank her for endorsing him. Curious, he asked what made her change her mind, and she admits that she only showed up to watch him fail. She tells him how politics was never his thing, but how maybe she was wrong. She calls the cover story ridiculous, but acknowledges that it is doing the job for now. Bernard tells her that if they want to argue, they'll have to disprove it, and then if that doesn't work, there's always brute force. Meadows raises an eyebrow, warning that brute force only works for so long. You'll need to give them something to believe in, she says. Then Bernard brings up the JL graffiti he already seen, admitting that his story might hold for a few days, but things could unravel fast. He tells Judge Meadows he needs her, and then Judge Meadows is like, why, because I've been to the vault? Bernard nods yes, but adds, and because you're the only person I'll listen to, and no one else ever came close to filling your shoes. Then he goes on to apologize for trying to bribe her earlier, calling it insulting, and Meadows thanks him and says she wants to show him something. Then we cut back down to Mechanical, where Shirley is in the outer corridor of the generator room, training a group on using hand signals to communicate. During this time, Cooper shows up saying that Knox sent him to keep an eye on her. Because Juliet was his shadow, he promises to cover them, claiming everyone was home by curfew. Then he proceeds to tell them that whatever they got going on, he wants to be a part of it. Shirley starts to explain the tape switch, but Walker suddenly appears, cutting her off. She snaps on them and she's like, y'all don't know anything. She warns Shirley that if anyone overhears their conversation, that they'll all be sent to the mines. Then Walker reveals to them that she tracked them there by following Cooper. And basically she smirks all cocky and shit, telling them that none of them are good at this. You know, the whole sneaking around and having private conversations thing. Walker mentions the graffiti popping up all over the silo, JL for Juliet Lives. And Shirley's like, good, because I think it's true. She looks at Walker like, well, what about you? What do you believe? And Walker nods and says, yeah, she's alive. So now with Walker admitting that Juliet survived, the brewing rebellion is starting to take shape. Then we jump back to Meadows' apartment where Bernard watches as she pours the alcohol down the drain. And then she's like, this is the first time in 25 years where I don't want to be drunk. Then she agrees to help Bernard, but under one condition. He must set aside some good tape for her for when the crisis is over. Her voice drops to a whisper and she says some very shocking shit. She tells him, I want what Juliet Nichols had today. I want to go out. And this was honestly pretty nuts, but it's also pretty clear at the same time that Judge Meadows is tired of living a lie. It's clear that she wants to know the truth and she can't keep lying to these people. She would rather go outside and see what her fate would be rather than staying in the silo, lying to everyone, being depressed and drinking all day. So my guess is that in the next episode, we'll likely be returning to the abandoned silo to see if Juliet can persuade the stranger out of the server room vault. He's probably been alone for a while and could use the company for sure. She'll also have the challenge of survival in the aftermath of a silo destroyed by rebellion, while the rebellion is also cooking up in her home silo. So I guess the major question here with the back and forth is, will her silo suffer the same fate as well? As this sort of foreshadowing as to what will happen in Julie's silo. Things are finally getting on a roll, and I'm pretty sure we're all happy after that pretty slow first episode. But as always guys, until next time, thank you for watching.